Hello, you. On today's Q&A, we're going to be answering your questions about how to retire in Spain, including what to do about visas, residency, your documents, cars, pets, everything, in fact, that you need to think about. I'll be joined shortly on the virtual settee by the virtual pool by our very good friend and Spain residency specialist, Chris from Upsticks.es, to answer all of your questions. So stick around. Ask questions on there and give us a wave, hit the like button and get yourself a mention in the live chat or in the comments below. Now gather round. It's time for our small but perfectly formed cosmic theme tune. Here it comes. Let's dance. Oh yeah, well, wasn't that groovy? Now, before I bring in Chris, I've got a delightful suggestion for all of you. When we've answered your questions today, why not check out our website, YouTooSpain.com, where you can find tons of extra information and blog articles and resources that you need for your move to Spain and for living here. It's for people who like to read and take in all of the information nice and slowly at their own pace, really. There's also a free newsletter every month that's going out later today because it's a new month. So sign up right now to get that. If you sign up in the next few hours, I will make sure that you're on the mailing list and you get that one. Doesn't cost you a penny, by the way. Speaking of which, all of the expert help you get here is absolutely free, but I'm sure you appreciate the value of all of the information and the work that we put in and the entertainment that you get from YouTube Spain. So you can make a donation via buymeacoffee.com/YouTube. There's a link below, or if you're tech savvy, there's one of these things up in the top right hand corner. That if you hover your phone over that, if you're on a laptop or a computer or an iPad or something, hover your phone over that thing and click on it, and then it will take you to the buymeacoffee.com thing. What I'm going to do is just I'm going to put a bigger one down below just for now on the screen. And this is especially for people who are watching back afterwards. You can rewind and go to this. I'll just leave that there for a couple of minutes. You can also, in the video description below, which is where the title of the video is down this end, and where it says read more at the end of that, just click on that. Brings up loads of discounts on vital services that you need, and all of the companies that we're connected to and are our partners. These are tried and tested, friendly companies. We love them all. They all support YouTube Spain every time you use the links, and it doesn't cost you a penny, which is wonderful. Here's just one little example before we get on with the show. There's a link below to get a free account with Smart Currency Exchange, where you can speak to my favorite advisor. They're lovely, and that's for free to help you make the most of your money so that you're not at the whim of the exchange rates. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win with a cherry on top. There you go. Let's get rid of that. And it's time now, without further ado, to meet my friend and yours. It's Chris from Upsticks. Morning, Chris.
Good morning.
How are you doing? Very good. Welcome back. It seems like ages. You've been away, haven't you? The date you were supposed to be here 2 weeks ago.
Yes, I have. Yes, I was in the UK. Just went back. It was quite funny because it coincided Mother's Day in the UK with Father's Day here, didn't it?
So yeah.
On the
so
Sunday,
did you do both then?
We did both. Yeah. It was also my mother's birthday on the same day. So I was like, well, we've got to go for that.
Oh, lovely. That's good. Family celebrations. There's going to be a lot of that. Talking about celebrations, we both have something amazing to celebrate, because not only have you just made your 100th YouTube video for your channel, but this is your 50th special guest appearance on YouTube Spain. Congratulations.
Yay.
Brilliant.
I've got a celebratory badge.
Fabulous.
50th video.
Well done, Ayla, for designing the logo for this. And now, and I know you don't really like food and drink very much, but we should really go out and celebrate. So maybe I can twist your arm on that.
Yeah, you have to. I think we're going to have to. That, I don't really want to, but if we have to go and eat a lot of tapas and drink wine, then we'll have to suffer, won't we?
We'll suffer it. Yeah. So, any shout outs for your successful clients before I say hello to everybody on the live chat?
We've had a few renewals actually through. I just wanted to say, I know the Joneses, they watch this channel at times, they just got their renewal through. So that was, so I just wanted to give them a quick shout out. The renewals seem to be now for the non-lucrative visas coming through very well, to be honest. So it's nice that taking a while, but at least people are now on their second and third year.
Brilliant. That is excellent. And I've heard that if you're applying for an Irish passport, Irish citizenship as well, through your grandparent, it was, when I did a video about a year ago, it was taking 2 years to get that through. But apparently somebody was saying they got theirs in 9 months. So the backlog from COVID and from the rush from Brexit for everybody to get an Irish passport so they could get over here is actually loosening off. So it's getting quicker to do that. So there
Fantastic.
we go. And let's see who's on the live chat then. We have Maff and Sally Moffat and Bev. Good morning, Bev. Andy Cooper's back, and AK Mitchell, that's and Kerry, and Terry Gibson from Good Morning All from a wet and windy Devon. And yes, felicitaciones to you as well. And Maff has a question up the top there, which we'll go into in a moment, because it's all about the non-lucrative visa and retiring on that. So and I've got another 2 questions from social media. So
wonderful.
Retiring to Spain, that is the dream of so many people. It used to be a lot easier for some people, and I'm talking about UK citizens, especially here. Let's not mention Brexit, shall we? These days, UK citizens are third country nationals. That means they're not EU citizens anymore. So just like every other country's citizens outside of the EU, they have to get visas to live in Spain. So we'll talk about them first, and later on we'll talk about the process for EU citizens, which is a little bit easier. Yeah. So for the uninitiated then, Chris, let's go back to basics. Tell us, which visa does a non-EU citizen need to retire in Spain once they've made the decision to move?
Well, as we know, and we know it's the retirement visa now, it's the non-lucrative visa. Now, non-lucrative does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It is non-lucrative, i.e. you can't work even if you want to. So it's been, the non-lucrative visa really has sort of, of all the platforms you can come on, obviously it's been the most popular. With some people using it not as the retirement visa, but using it as a way to get in to Spain and maybe trying to then continue on a different platform. But in terms of people we're talking about today, people who are retiring, and when I come to Spain, the visa, non-lucrative visa, actually is, albeit it's being used for other purposes and other intent, is a retirement visa, and the consulates in the UK are very strict on that. Mm-hmm. To the point where now, if you are going to go for the retirement visa, you have to prove that you've given up work. So if state pensioners, it's pretty easy because they've got a state pension letter. And but for people who are working or early retirees, you have to have the proof that you basically have given up, i.e. you've got P45, or if you're self-employed, signed off of that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Great. So let's go for Matt's question, actually. This is about how much money do you need? I was going to ask that later on, actually, but it is a good question, and I don't want to lose it from the live chat when all of the other chats come through. So Matt says, if I go for the non-lucrative visa, do I have to have all the money I'll need for the first year? That's the second application at years 2 and 3, and the final application for years 4 and 5, in order to prove, is that what the official is going to be looking for, that they can show you can get through the whole 5 years of your temporary residency?
Right. Okay. Now, what they're going to look at is because of the renewal process. So you get a visa initially for a year, and then obviously when you but when you come to the end of that first year, you then renew for 2 years, and at the end of that 36-month period, you renew for 2 years again. Now, we always talk about EPREM, don't we? Which we had a nice little video going on about that, which if you don't know what it is, watch one of the 50 shows. But it all relates back to that. So let's just say for a single applicant, for example, who needs to prove that they have, for the first year, they need 4 times EPREM, which is 28,800 euros. Now, you only need that for your first year. So, you know, it's taken on face value what you presented at the consulate. If you've got passive income, which is non-worked income, that's proven you're receiving it annually, then you can use that. You can use savings, or you can use a combination of both. But when you come to do your renewal, which is for 2 years, and this is the important bit, that if you are using savings and only savings, then you do need to prove that you've got those 2 years worth in the bank. So it's not the full 4 years you've got left, because when you come to renew again, they will take on face value what you're showing them, but you do need to prove those 2 years in the bank when you come to renew at the end of that first year.
That's kind of bone of contention on the internet. Some people saying, and in some areas you only need the 1 year, but really it's a bone of contention because it's the way that you look at it. If you look at it as a monthly amount that you've got each month rather than the annual amount, it's easier, I think, to understand that. You need
for people planning now, and we can say, and we did that whole video with the letters that we've received, which proves what it is, but I know there's other people's interpretations in the same industry are different to mine, but the way that we describe it is basically that, you know, it's that we've got letters from immigration and they've requested the exact amounts, you know. So if it's only savings, the responsible thing to do and to make sure you have no problems is to make sure you've got 2 years worth. If it's passive recurring income, that is counted as double because it's recurring. So if you've got a pension, for example, of 20 grand a year, okay, you don't have to have 20 grand then make up the difference of the 2 years in savings, because that 20 grand would qualify as 40 grand over the 2 year period because it's passive recurring income. We've just actually Mr. McCarthy watches as well. He's on. We've just got his through. So hopefully, John, you're watching. We put together a structure of passive recurring and savings. Yeah, so that was fine. So passive recurring income, pension doesn't quite meet the grade, but you've got savings to top it up. Then that works. But the savings side of things always has to be as a fixed amount to make you up to that what you're looking for, and the passive recurring is counted on a monthly basis, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense to me. Hopefully that makes sense to Math as well. Give us a thumbs up, Math, if that's all right with you. I mean, the basic answer to the question is you don't need to have to prove years 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 on your initial application. Although if you've only got 1 year's worth of savings and you're dealing purely with savings, they might question what you're going to do in the next year. They might look at you questioning you.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, as long as people have had the minimum amount in, they haven't questioned. Now, what we have had is maybe for younger applicants, questions. If a younger applicant, when I'm saying younger, I'm probably saying below 55, for example, is not quite normal. 55 is around sort of the early retiree age, you know, more or less. And then people who are coming in under that age with very tight on the requirements for the initial year, then you find that they start to question, though, you know, normally as long as you meet the requirements, there shouldn't be any problem with getting the visa, but you'll find those applications are the ones that get more questions. But yeah, to answer the question, you don't need that full lump sum 5 years. If you're doing your financial planning, maybe you've got stuff maturing and stuff. Evidently, we're not tax advisors, but you've got to watch out for things like capital gains if you're selling property and that, you know, we're doing your planning. But you don't need to have that money in the bank for the whole time.
Yeah, Math says he's got 60,000 savings at the moment. That's in pounds. Do you have a pension, Math? Are you over pension age? That would be something we need to know so that you can add that all into the sums.
A lot of people do that. What they do is, we've got clients which have done that, and they're quite a good structure. What they've done is they've got their initial visa, and they've actually come over, and they've no plans on selling on using their savings, so they've parked them in a bank as savings, not touching those savings, and living off of maybe a smaller pension. So, you know, for example, some structures we see are people who have got savings but actually living off of a state pension and maybe a small private pension, but the savings meet the minimum required for the 2 years. So you know, basically all they give us is a statement from the savings, and we add their passive recurring to it anyway, and then they go through. Now what happens is, obviously after your last renewal, what you can do then is spend your savings, have a party if you want
to. That's a good party for £60,000. Just make sure you invite me, Matt, if you're going to have a party for that. Oh, here we go. He says 55 and has a company pension of £600 a month. So that's pretty good. That's enough.
Yeah. If you've got £600 a month, if you could live off of that, I mean, if you were to park your savings, so you're talking double 28, 57,600, is it off the top of my head? Yeah. So say if you were to say about 58 grand for the renewal, if you're working off a basis of daily savings, but he's got his passive recurring, that's 12 grand over that renewal. Yeah. So if he was to have 57 minus 12, 40, so he had between 45 and 50 in savings plus the passive recurring income, that would qualify for the renewal.
Yeah, so if you can just live off that in the first year and show that you've not spent any of those savings in the bank, that would do, I'd say. An official would say, yeah, that's fine, you're surviving. Yeah. Oh, and he's also got £1,600 passive income a month from the house that he's going to sell as well. Oh, you're easily under the over the threshold. I mean, that's good.
Yeah, because that's 16 plus the 600. That's in pounds. That's 2,200 converted to euros. 2,300. You nearly at 2,700 there already. You know, that's good.
Yeah, no problems. Congratulations, Matthew. You're in.
The only thing I would say about the passive recurring from rental income is make sure that it's recorded properly. So we have to present. Obviously, for the second renewal, it'll be going through a Spanish tax return, which is very easy to present because it's a Spanish tax return. You'll be declaring your money, albeit we're not going to get too much into tax on when you pay it, but you still have to declare your worldwide income. But if you have a management company that is renting the property, that you'd need the proof of where the money is going into, the rental contract, and evidently all that proof has to be translated into Spanish. So when you are preparing your structures to come over, especially for retirees who can have quite complicated passive income structures, it's always good to remember on renewal, everything has to be translated if it's in English. So making it as simple as possible saves on the translation.
Great stuff. Let's answer Paul Jarvis Beasley's question. My NHS pension is currently paid to a UK account. I think that means taking up residency this year. Should we have the pension paid to our Spanish bank or leave it as it is? I think we end up paying the same tax either way.
Well, it comes back to what I was saying. So this comes back to what we were chatting about pre-show, is the structure of what you present. Now, when someone comes to us with passive income, we have to prove the passive income. Now, that can stay in a UK account, but then we would have to present. So if you're his initial application, it's fine using the UK account at the consulate. At the moment, they're not asking for translations of the account, but for the renewal where you're dealing directly with immigration, they do ask for translations. And the problem you've got, if you've got all your passive income going into a UK account and we've got to prove it, and you've got 400 pages and it might be an account that you use regularly anyway, then you could end up with a very expensive translation bill. Whereas if it's going into the Spanish account, evidently Spanish extractos, bank
statements.
Statements, that's the word I'm looking for. Bank statements, they don't need translating or anything. You just go down your bank with stamp for me to submit them.
Yeah. Translations are per page. So that's, as Chris was saying, the more pages you've got, it's going to be very expensive.
And everybody says it's a typical thing you receive, but that's ridiculous. It's just numbers. And I'm like, I know it's ridiculous. It's just numbers, but you still have to, it's per page, per figure, so, albeit that, and it does sound ridiculous. It is just numbers, but even bank account statements have to be translated. I know you can't translate the number. It looks the same in Spanish and in English, but everything else around it is translated. And obviously the numbers are counted as part of your word count, so that's why it's expensive.
There we go. And a question from Janet. Good morning, Janet. She says, I read yesterday that Manchester is no longer accepting a ZoomDoc medical certificate if your passport shows you weren't in Spain when it was issued. Can Chris shed any light on this, please? I've heard that a few times.
It's been a big problem last week with the documents that now at the moment, I know it's been contested. I saw ZoomDoc contested it. The doctor issued our certificates, they've contested it. But yeah, last week on the 23rd, there was a spate of rejections for people who had used those kind of certificates. We haven't heard anything yet back from them, but what they're asking for is that the entry stamp and exit stamps into Spain match the certificates, i.e. that they can't be done remotely now. That's what Manchester are asking for.
Okay.
Now, yeah, it's quite serious. What I've seen, the contestaciones from the medical companies have all gone back and said, well, actually, the medical law changed during COVID, and they advised that the best way to do it was non-presential, and gone back with the law which actually states that. Yeah, that's something that's that everybody's monitoring at the moment, but going off quite a bit.
Okay, we'll have an update on that as soon as we can then, Janet. We'll let you know. Listen on the following weeks. Chris is here for the next 2 weeks anyway, so if we've got an update, we'll let you know. And let's see. Oh, good morning, Mike Ripper. He's planning to early retire to the Granada province next year. Can't wait. Granada's lovely.
Yeah.
There we go. Paul is saying, my question was more about the ongoing situation for retirement here. I already have residency. What was your question? That was, if your pension is paid, should you have it paid to your Spanish bank? He already has residency. Should he continue to have it paid to the Spanish bank? Are you 5 years resident? Are you permanent already? Or are you just temp and still going through the non-lucrative visa years? Is my question.
Yeah, well, he might. I mean, if he's withdrawal agreement and he's got a structure that works for him, then it's fine. It's where you're getting it paid into. That's the same for the EU structure. What we've noticed is when people have got an EU passport and they're retiring, here in Malaga, certainly, all we present is a copy of the state pension letter. So that says that meets the minimum EPREM requirement, and so they don't ask for proof of it going into a Spanish bank or a UK bank, and normally that's accompanied by an S1 form. And on a couple of occasions, actually in Marbella, they only ask for the S1. Well, we always advise that you take a translation of the state pension with you. But yeah, so if, for example, Paul's on a withdrawal agreement platform and he's already got his residency, then he probably wouldn't need to change it.
No, he's only just got his green card, so he's only been here for a little while.
His green card, so he's an EU one.
Yeah, it's the one I've got.
Yeah,
there we go. We'll come to if you're here wanting to know the basic answer about how to retire, we'll come to some of those questions later, like where to apply, who can apply, and all of those healthcare questions, etc. in a moment. But I'll answer who's on the live chat at the moment, because that's all happening right in front of my eyes. And Bev, good morning, Bev. Pension into a bank account. Can you have it paid into a UK bank, then transfer monthly to Spanish to negate the translation fees?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so if you've got a Spanish, you can build a trail. You certainly can. Now, what we always advise is that when you do the transfer, you write actually what it is. Okay, so you can prove what the origin of the funds are. But yeah, essentially, yeah, you could do that as long as if you can make it, as long as the paperwork trail works, then that's fine. You can do that. Yeah. Now, well, that comes with the caveat that immigration sometimes take it upon themselves to ask what they like. Yeah. So if you have an extra step in the trail, i.e., it's not your pension provider who's paying directly into your Spanish bank account, and they ask for proof of that, then you're back to where you need translations. But normally, as long as you have P60, proof what the annual amount is, and proof of it going into a bank. Now in Spain, they can see it regular payments, and that's fine. I would say as well, to make sure, maybe you just do it like every day on the first of the month, all the time. Don't forget and go, oh, I've got to do my 2 months pension now. You know, it's got to be regular, really.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
Brilliant. And Hayley Cash, morning from gloomy Manchester. Sorry about Manchester being gloomy. And if I had a non-lucrative visa, then decide I want to work, maybe 2 years later, can I change to a working visa? That's a yes.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
Yeah. And it's actually easier once you're in Spain on a non-lucrative visa to apply for the working visa than it is if you're trying to apply for it initially from the UK, because you don't have to comply with the needing to, the job needs to only be done by an EU person first, if I've explained that right.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, I think you did a really good show with Rochelle on that, didn't you? And I say, to be honest, the only thing about that is, I mean, we most of our clients are retirees, quite our demographic. We haven't done any work in switches yet. There's an awful lot of people. I haven't seen that many go through. I do keep an eye on what's going on. We thought we'd see more renewals. We've done an awful lot of NLV renewals. We thought we'd see a few more switch ups. But yeah, in theory, if you're legally resident and you have the opportunity to change that for another residency and you qualify, you can do that. This is the same as people who come on a non-lucrative visa, get their Irish passport, and then switch for EU platform.
So Hayley, if you want to know the process, then have a look for that video that I did with Rochelle. It's not that many months ago. If you can't find it, then ask me on the Facebook group or something, and I'll give you a link to that one. So great, we've run out of questions on the live chat, so let's get on with the basics. First of all, where do you apply? Can you come to Spain and apply, or do you have to apply where you live?
No, if you apply for the non-lucrative visa, then you have to apply at your local consulate. Okay, so that's the if you're coming from the UK, evidently your consulates are Edinburgh, Manchester, and London. Again, another question which came up this week was somebody who had all their documents related, all their bank accounts related to one house, which was in the London jurisdiction, and then they were moving to the Manchester, just over the border jurisdiction, while they're waiting to prepare the visa. Now, what the consulates look at is where your documentation is addressed to. So you've got to you can't mix the two. It gets quite confusing. It would be my advice not to. Okay, so we decided in this instance that we're going to keep everything at the same old address, so your ACRO, criminal records and stuff, and they're going to be applying there. But yeah, you have to apply at your consulate.
Yes, it's not necessarily always your nearest one geographically. It depends on which county you're in, and you can look on either upsticks.es or on a video that I did not too long ago, and that tells you which catchment area you fall into.
Yeah, and evidently, if you are spending $500,000 on a property or invest or putting $1 million in the bank here, you can get a golden visa. Then you can apply from Spain and retire in that way. But so if you've got $500,000 to spend on a property, but just remember that the person who's invested in the property has to have. You can't split it between a couple, 250 and 250. It has to be $500,000 invested by the main retiree, and then whoever's coming with them would be the beneficiary of that.
Yes, and it's worth knowing that any of those visas that you apply for, like the golden visa, the working visa, the digital nomad visa, it's cheaper to apply if you're in Spain.
Yes,
because you don't have to pay the consulate fee, and it goes through doesn't actually go through the same mechanism as the non-lucrative visa, does it? What's the name of the organization?
So UG, so Unidades Grandes Empresas. So yeah, it's a completely different platform. So when so for example, when we're doing non-lucrative visas, so the non-lucrative visa initially has to be applied for at the consulate, but then when you come to Spain and you come to do the renewal of your visa, there's two ways you can do it. You can either book an appointment at immigration to present your documentation, but that is being phased out now. Okay, in Malaga, they're trying to phase that out. And then there's this government platform called Mercurio, which you can either A, with your digital certificate, do it yourself, or B, get somebody to do it for you. Okay, and you can submit all the documents onto this platform. Immigration then get everything digitally, and then your approval comes back digitally, and that's when you have to go back to get your residency card, your new one, your updated one. In the Golden Visa, there's a different platform. It's a completely different platform. It's what they call UG, Unidades Grandes Empresas, and that's dealt with in Madrid. So the immigration platform is dealt with provincially, whereas this is just Madrid. And yes, so both can be done online, but on two different platforms.
Yes, you might hear it called UG. That's what Rochelle was calling it. That's the So who can apply?
Right. Who can apply for the non-lucrative visa? Well, anybody who qualifies. Basically, the good thing about it is there is every residency, as we always talk about, has these main points, don't they? And the people who can apply say if you financially qualify, you can apply. You need to have healthcare, so that can be on two platforms for the non-lucrative visa or an EU residency, which is private healthcare, or the S1 document, which gives you access to state healthcare if you're a state pensioner. And then the big difference between the non-lucrative, if you're a retiree, you're coming through the consulates, and the EU, is that non-lucratives have to prove that they haven't got a criminal record. And the way you prove that is with an ACRO criminal records check. Now, remember that all documents which are official documents, like certificates, criminal record certificates, marriage and birth certificates, all have to, if you're using them at a consulate, be translated and legalized as well with an apostille.
That's ACRO, by the way, ACRO. And if you Google that, that's if you're in the UK. Google that.
If you Google that
that's
now,
what the sign's
you're not going to get a lot. If you Google it now, because the website's knackered.
Is it? Oh dear.
Yeah. You're not
Normally then.
Lot, no, but it's under reconstruction or something. I don't know, but it's been down for a week.
Oh dear. That's not going to help people's timing, is it, when they're getting the documents through?
It's always something.
Yeah. So that's all the requirements and the documents, is it? Have we talked about?
Well, obviously you need, so for the non-lucrative visa, when you're requiring, you need your money, you need to make sure you've got your healthcare, you need to get your criminal records checked. Evidently, at the time of the appointment, you have to take the relevant application forms with you as well. So there's three that you're going to need to take. One is the national visa form, which is called Solicitud de Visado Nacional.
Okay. What number is that one? Is that EX01?
That's the visa application form. So that's the first one. That's the 4-page document where, to be honest, the last 3 pages you really don't fill out an awful lot. It's when we prepare. Should have really had one here ready for you, shouldn't I? It's the main front page, which has most of the information on it, and then a signature at the back. The only thing you fill out on that page 2 is the expected entry date. Then you've got the application form, which is specific to the non-lucrative visa, which is the model EX01, which is also going to be used for your renewal. So when you come to renew, you also use a model EX01. And then you've got your Modelo 790, which is the tax payment form. Now, on all the 790s, you get 3 pieces of paper, and the back one looks different to the front 2. And those 3 pieces you get, there's 1 copy for yourself, there's 1 copy for the entity who's taking the payment, and there's 1 copy for the authorities who are going to be issuing the visa. So you'll always be handed just 1 copy back.
Okay. And you pay when you're there, or can you pay in advance?
No, you have to pay when you're there, and make sure you've got a credit card. So between the visa fee and another small fee that they charge you there, it's £525 you have to pay there. So it's going to make sure you can't pay that in cash either. That has to be with a card. Good.
Andy Cooper saying the ACRO site is now accepting applications via email. So that's handy to know. There. And Math is saying, if I get the Acro certificate, it only lasts for 3 months. I presume I then need to get the timing right with appointment at the consulate. Yeah, you do. With all of those kind of things that you've got to get documents like marriage certificate, birth certificates, if there's family members involved. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's timing. We always try and say it doesn't always work out, but if the theory is if you start your documents 6 weeks before your expected consulate date, then you've got a 6-week buffer at the back end of your expiry. And we find that when we're doing our sort of structuring, we normally do a sort of a 6-week with 6-week buffer. So if someone says to us our expected entry date in Spain is X, we'll say, okay, then what we try and derive is a consulate date. What's the consulate date? So say you want to go the 1st of June, for example, and then you've got, obviously you have to be flexible in the issuing of the visa, because they take anything from a month to 3 months. But if we nail down a consulate date of the 1st of June, as you know, that's our target date, we would start doing the paperwork halfway through April, to be honest.
Anthony says, line all your ducks up. Put your ducks in a row.
Yeah. Put your ducks in a row. Reminds me of Coronation Street, that does.
Yes. There we go. Andy says, when you go for your appointment at the Spanish consulate, do you have to have a Spanish address where you'll be living? Good question.
Good question. Yeah, so you need to have a correspondence address. Okay, so you don't actually have to have a rental or own your own property, but you certainly need a correspondence address. But that correspondence address has to be in the province in which you'll be residing. Okay, now I'll say it has to be. It doesn't have to be, but then when you come to register your TIE card, if you have changed provinces or changed your mind, then you have to have a Padron certificate to prove where you currently live. Okay, so yeah, you have to have a correspondence address. We've successfully used our office address on many times and then updated it to the person's residential address here in Malaga for people who've come here.
Yes, indeed. Math says, I need to do a process map for the non-lucrative visa so I can get the timings for getting the documents, etc. in the window for the consulate appointment date. If you use upsticks.es, then Chris will do all that for you.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for you. And where you go, Math, it depends as well where you go in terms of availability of appointments and stuff as well. So that's all structured into it.
There you go. Robbo's asking about bringing in your car, your UK car. He says, if my car is valued in the UK at £10,500, nice, what import taxes am I likely to pay in Spain? It's not just about the value of the car, is it?
No, so you've got the two things there. So if you just there's the three main things. So if you put the set fees aside of registering a vehicle here, which is the technical inspection, etc., the traffic authorities that they're going to charge you. The two taxes that you've got is obviously the first thing is VAT and duty, because the vehicle is from outside the EU. Now, if you're changing residency, you won't pay VAT and duty if you can prove that you're changing residency with the relevant documents. But you will have to employ a customs agent to get the documentation through. I certainly would not advise doing it yourself with customs. A lot of the time, the vehicles don't actually even have to go to customs because this is done remotely. A customs agent will submit the documents on your behalf, and then what they have is they have a traffic light system where they submit the documents. The customs authorities then give you a red, an amber, or a green. If it's a red, it means they have to take the vehicle to customs for them to inspect it. If it's an amber, it means it's being processed and you have to wait. And then if it goes to green, you get a document called a DUA, which proves that your vehicle has waived successfully the VAT and duty. Now, in terms of the other tax you'll pay, there's a special registrations tax. We've actually got a really good article on our website on how to calculate that. So I'll send you a link to that. Now, the special registrations tax is an emissions-based tax. Now, in theory, again, to change your residency, you should be able to present a document called a Model 06, which allows you to waive this tax because you're bringing it in to change your residency. But in practice, this works very well for EU citizens because the timing works well. They get their residency straight away. But you have to present this document within 60 days of the vehicle passing the ITV. And you're going to register it, but you need a TIE card. and it has to be within 60 days of you actually registering, but your TIE card doesn't come through for 45 days, and it never works out for non-lucrative applicants. So it's always worth looking at how much the special registrations tax would cost on a vehicle when you're bringing it over.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Does that answer your question there, Robbo? I hope so. And Marf says he's not going until 2024, but he does have a consultation phone call with Upsticks booked in for the 19th of April. So you're doing it nice and early.
Cool. Nice. That's cool. That's good. It's good. We like to talk to people early. We're dealing with people now, people coming on board that I spoke to this time last year, and they've just kept on this channel and kept on our channel and just now ready to go. It's nice to speak to people early. We prefer it.
Yeah, because there's a lot you can line up. You can line up your ducks, basically. There we go. There's a funny one from David. Thank you for this, David. Spain announced today that applicants for the nomadic visa must wear a tea towel on their head when attending the appointment, come with proof of ownership of a camel and tent to house the family. Thank you for that April Fool there, David. That's lovely. Hopefully everybody watching not on the 1st of April won't take that one seriously. There you go. And so as we're going through the list, the next question was going to be financial requirements, but we went through that earlier with one of the questions. So, and we've also said what documents you need for your appointment. Healthcare was my next question. What do you need for that? Yeah, we didn't mention healthcare.
Yeah, so healthcare, if you are, let's go with state retirees, first of all. State retirees could get an S1 form, which you get from the pensions authorities in the UK, and this proves that you can export your healthcare to Spain. This is one of the agreements which is still in place with the EU, and is working very well. Now, what you have to be careful with at the consulates is what they call the registration of the S1 before you go to your appointment. So there is a website here for the Social Security in Spain, where you have to register your S1 before you go to your consulate appointment, and have proof of that registration for them to accept the S1. So what happened was, with the whole non-lucrative visa process, initially they wouldn't accept them, then they decided to accept them, and now they've fallen on the fact that you need to have it pre-registered.
Okay.
Now, even with the pre-registration, we've also had a couple which they just said, they sent them requirement letters saying that you still need to have private healthcare, and we've had to go back and say, well, actually, no, we sent you the pre-registration and it's been fine. Yeah, but we do the pre-registration for our clients, or they can do it themselves on the Social Security website. So that's something just to look out for. Obviously, also, when you come into Spain, the S1 cannot be completed, the registration, till you've got your Padron certificate and your town hall registration and your TIE card. So during that period, you're still not going to have state healthcare. So it's always a good idea to have some sort of provision in place just in case.
Mm-hmm. So healthcare for people who can't get an S1.
So private healthcare policy. So you're going to need a private healthcare policy. Now that private healthcare policy must meet the requirements of the consulate, which is the same as the requirement for any residency, is which there's no exclusions and no co-payments. Co-payments are excess. So what they want to know really, immigration, is that if you were walking down the road and fall down a pothole and break your leg, that when the ambulance turns up, it's not going to be asking for your credit card before it attends to you.
Yeah. Cool.
These policies are, they're now brokers. It used to be a real pain when we were doing residencies, because all the companies wouldn't provide you with the correct certificates. They would provide you with a policy like biblical. You'd have to go to page 500 to show there was no co-payments. And now, the last 7 or 8 years, most companies provide specific products for residency, which include a qualifying certificate, and all you have to do is take the certificate and the proof of the payment to your appointment in the consulate.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that we get a consulate that asks to look further than the certificate and the proof of payment.
Brilliant. And if you look down below in the video description there. I do at YouTooSpain have a preferred partner you can go to and get a quotation for your healthcare there. So have a look at that. Don't forget to hit the like button, by the way, just in case you haven't done that. It's down on your sort of bottom right underneath the screen there. And I see that.
And the one thing to mention as well, so I just worked at the top of my head, is don't forget you need to pay the full year.
Yeah.
So
it needs to cover the whole year up to the end of your first year as well. So not just from the point you apply for it while you're going for a consulate appointment.
That's correct. That's correct. And on a note on the renewals, actually, on that, because we didn't know how, you know, remember, we're going still through the first year renewals now. So we're still seeing the reaction from the various consulates on different things. Mm-hmm. We've had people who've gone from private to S1. So we've had people who've come on a private policy, have only just qualified for S1 and managed to register that before the renewal. We've handed in the registration certificates and they've gone through fine. Some people prefer to run the private alongside the S1 for the first year anyway, where they're getting their feet under the table. And then in terms of the renewal of the policy, some companies, because most companies like to start the policies from the 1st of January. So what we've seen is that because the initial applications were done in various points during the year, people have got a year's worth of insurance. And then when they've come to renew, for example, if it was going to expire in March, this is what we're seeing now a lot of, then they're only giving them a policy to the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, at the moment, we haven't had any problems with these policies as long as it is stated that it's annually renewable. So it's going to be renewed annually. Evidently, you can't get a policy for the full 2 years of your renewal. And so far, so good with these policies that we've seen where people have maybe ended the policy, it's renews in March, the company's gone back to them and said, right, now you're going to fall into our current structure of annual renewals, and they've renewed with an annually renewable policy, and it's been fine.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. I missed out one of Math's questions. Thanks for the reminder there, Math. He's self-employed, ends his final contract in September. He won't have a P45. So what document does he need to prove he's retiring?
So you need to prove, if you use an accountant to do your books, then the accountants have to provide accountant's letter and proof from HMRC of when you signed off from being self-employed. If you don't use an accountant, then you have to contact HMRC yourself, obviously sign yourself off from being self-employed, and you have to have proof of that.
Yes, and that needs to be translated to...
Well, actually, you know, at the moment, the consulates have been pretty good, and they haven't wanted them translating. We've got one requirement lately for translation where somebody went, oh, we want that translated. We did it quickly, and it was fine. What you have to be careful of is if you're doing it on your government gateway, you might have to request an official letter from HMRC, because the government gateway, what you can get off there is proof. It looks like a PDF that my daughter's made up. So, you know, you want to make sure, you know, in Spain, they love a stamp and a header, don't they? So, you know, if you are doing it yourself, I would request a letter from HMRC just to show when you signed up.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Robbo's saying the whole process for an LV sounds really complicated and off-putting. Is it as complicated as it sounds?
No, it comes. Robbo's going to come to us anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah. I'd say it's not necessarily complicated if everything's lined up in a row and you don't have any difficulties in you know, having so many bank accounts in the UK that you're having to get a paper trail that's really complicated and lots of translations. It can be complicated if there are things like that, but if you've got somebody like Chris helping you out, then
so we work on, I can give us a plug now, can't I? When we're organising everything, the whole idea is to keep it sort of on the same platform and keep the same order. Yeah, so when we initially engage, we send our let's get started email, which is the order which we're going to be doing things. We then break it down and start it in that order. And then when we send out the application forms to people, which we complete, and we give them a folder which has a tick list in it, and it's the same thing we're working through. So you're always working through the same order, because if you start thinking, oh, acro medical certificate, and you lose your timings and stuff, then it gets a bit complicated. Whereas if you just stick to the order and the process, then, you know, as I say, that 6-week preparation timescale frame is where it's all that's where the business happens.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right in keeping it simple. Keeping your financial structures simple makes it a lot easier on that part.
There we go. And Bev is saying she's moving to Fuerte and piggybacking off the Irish partner's residency. Do we need a 6-month rental contract in place to get residency? Long-term rental is very hard to get. It is at this time of year, especially. We'll have approximately £400,000 to buy property.
Partner is in married partner, Bev, or partner is in unmarried partner, because that's quite a big thing at the moment for EU if you're piggybacking. It's extremely difficult if you're not married to piggyback, to be honest, although it's not impossible. We, us as a company, we actually don't accept for people who aren't married because of problems. It's just not impossible. And then in terms of the 6-month rental, it all depends on the town hall whether they'll give you a padron certificate for a 6-month rental, because if they won't, then you would need a long-term rental, because that is a document you would have to present with the application.
There you go. Bev says she'll be married by 2025. So if you're moving after that, that'll make it a lot easier. Yes.
Yeah.
And Bev says, do you help with residency in Fuerte? Whereabouts is that? I don't know Fuerte.
Is it one of the islands? We can help, yeah.
Fuerteventura, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think it might be Fuerteventura. Yes, we can help.
Yeah. Well, you've got somebody over on the islands as well who can go to people's appointments with them. That's good.
We have. If not, I'll have a trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I might join you on that one. I've not been to the islands yet.
I'll tell you, keep booking appointments in weird and wonderful places, and I'll go to that one.
Absolutely. You're the boss. You can do what you want.
poor Tom's absolutely hammered here in Malaga, doing like 8 appointments in one day, and he does an amazing job. And then I'll go and book one in Batha, and it's okay. I'll do that.
Yes, he gets all the ones that are on industrial estates where he's going to. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Let's see. We had actually some questions from social media. Let's get to them before we find out if there's any more basic questions. Joe Evans says, come on screens, where are you? Here we go. And it's a tax question, really. To which country do you pay tax on your UK pension?
Don't know. I'm joking. Don't do tax, but well, you've obviously got great tax videos on here as well. But generally, you would pay, because there's a double taxation treaty, you would pay whatever falls in that treaty in the UK, and a lot of the time the difference here in Spain, because the tax thresholds are lower. One thing to mention actually on that front that our clients who've been dealing with tax advisors have found is that everybody says, do you pay double tax? No, you don't pay double tax because of the double taxation treaty, but there is a period between January and April where the 2 tax years cross over, and that could coincide with you moving to Spain, and you do actually pay double tax and then have to claim it back just for that small period. So that's something definitely when you are doing your tax structuring with an advisor to mention to them, because you might end up paying double and working out how to just get it back for that 4-month period.
Yeah. There you go. I hope that answers your question, Joe. And let's have this other question. I'm going to put this one up and then kind of translate it, because it's a bit of a rambling one from Brian. Thank you, Brian Spark. He's basically asking, what happens if you're a retiree, you're a permanent Spanish resident, so you've been there more than 5 years, but you find yourself struggling to pay rent in the future? Is there any help you can get? Local authority housing benefit, anything like that?
Yeah, so I can't say it's my forte, but yeah, as a permanent resident, you should have and hold the rights of any Spaniard to any sort of access to help that you'd need. Now, I know, as we were saying before, here in our town, for example, we have an old people's home which assists people who can't afford their own. It's got subvention by the government, and they can't afford their own accommodation, and they fall into the minimum pension bracket because whatever reason they haven't made their contributions. Sadly, there's someone was telling me the other day about sadly some of the ladies who were in there, they worked for cash and stuff back in the day. The husbands have passed and they haven't managed to get access to a lot of that. So there's a lot of people there who are on the minimum wage. So yeah, it definitely be down to your local authority. There is a minimum paga vital as well. There's a minimum payment if you're not earning what they class to be the minimum amount of money to live on here. You can apply for that as well. So yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly what it'd be, but I'm sure that if you've got a 10-year residency, then you should be able to approach your local authorities for help.
There you go. I hope that covers everything for you, Brian. I know it's something that a lot of people might be worried about, and sort of talking about funeral plans and pension plans and what happens when you get to that point where you're unable to look after yourself in Spain. Actually, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about planning ahead as part of this series of 3 videos we've got while Chris is here. And we'll also have somebody on from Age in Spain to answer a few questions, just a little sort of 5-minute spot in the middle of the program. They'll be joining us. Hopefully it's the big boss man of Age in Spain, because they've put out this a big preparing to move to Spain whole new PDF, massive PDF file, which can really help you. And it's got a lot of the details that we did on a program nearly 2 years ago, I think, Chris. We went through a whole series of 4 or 5 how to prepare, and from before year one before, and 6 months before, 3 months before, and then moving, and then what happens afterwards. So and that's a good thing that and I'm going to be putting out a Wednesday video all about it, and interviewing them in more depth all about some of the advice you can get on there. But that in conjunction with using someone like Upsticks is no, not someone like using Upsticks for your non-lucrative visa is will give you lots and lots of information there. So that's worth waiting for. So watch the show in 2 weeks' time. And Robbo's back on saying, should I put my partner on my UK bank account, because when I retire, he's not retiring until 2025, I think, or he's not coming over until 2025. But when I retire, all the money required to prove financial solvency will be in my account, not hers. Is that a good idea?
Okay, again, partners. This is I don't know if you're married or unmarried partners, Robbo, but certainly. So for the initial, and it's a good point Robbo's made here. So for the initial application as a couple, the consulates don't, as long as you can prove that you've got joint assets, i.e., so yes, you should, i.e., joint bank accounts and stuff, then they don't seem to be too bothered about the marriage certificate for couples. But we do come against it for the renewals. Okay, so for the renewals, we have a real problem if people are married and they want to see that they qualify individually, whereas the consulates initially don't seem to have that problem as long as the assets are joint, i.e. joint bank accounts. Something to really point out as well, especially with London. Now, what we're seeing with London applications is that when people have bank accounts in their name and they're presenting a marriage certificate, should we say it's all the money's in the wife's name, for example, but they're presenting a marriage certificate, so the husband's joining, as a joint application as such. What we're seeing is that London is still asking, albeit they're presenting marriage certificates, for notarized declarations that the person with the money will look after their spouse. So it seemed to be able to avoid that with a joint account. But if you haven't got a joint account, even if you're married, you might find that they ask you for this document.
I would say definitely get a joint account early on. That's very handy for lots of things. There we go. Paul Cook says, I've watched all content on both your channels and learnt so much. Definitely getting my head around it all. Thanks for your hard work. You're very welcome, Paul. And he's going to be moving to Huercalovera in Almeria in 2 years. Will Chris be able to help me with my non-lucrative visa? Yes, of course.
I will. Of course, yeah. Almeria is one of our that's one of my cheeky appointment places there, you see. I don't like it.
It's a nice little journey, isn't it? It's two
Yeah.
or 3 hours for you from there, is it?
2 hours. 2 hours spot. If you stick to the speed limits and don't get any speeding fines, then it's exactly 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. I've not been over there yet, and we're closer than you.
It's worth when you get past Montreal. So that the road up to Montreal, when you get past Almuñeca and then you go on that the long road all the way, it's a lovely drive. I mean, it's something to see with the greenhouses. It's like there's 100 kilometers of just plastic, which is particularly not particularly nice to look at, but it's this side of Almeria you have to see. That's where the world's fruit and veggies grow. It's definitely worth a look. And if you duck into some of the villages there on the coast, it's like going back into the 70s. It gives you a feel of what it would have been like, back then, on the coast.
Beautiful. That's the Costa Tropical. Very nice.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth a drive over there. And obviously Almeria itself is beautiful. Then you've got Cabo de Gata north of that.
Yeah, perfect. And Haley says, I agree. I find these shows very helpful. Thank you. Good to hear. Make sure you click on the like button if you like. Good. There we go. So a lot of the other questions I had are about the whole process of preparing and planning, including things like, should you sell up everything in advance? Should you sell your house in advance? Should you sell your furniture in advance so you don't have to move so many things? Shall we answer that one now, or shall we leave it for the preparing show in 2 weeks' time?
Well, I don't mind. I can answer now. I have to go to golf in a minute, but we're all right. Well, not my golf, but kids' golf.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what. Let's leave that one for 2 weeks' time, because there's a lot of preparation questions that I can do. One question I did have was, what's a very quick one? What's the difference between the visa and residency?
Right. So obviously the visa, when you get your visa, that gives you the access to apply for your temporary residency when you get to Spain. That's a very valid point, actually. Something that someone asked me the other day, and I thought, what, we're not clear on that. It's great when you get questions from clients, because it realizes that you jump the gun. The visa, when it's issued, a non-lucrative visa, is put in your passport as a sticker. Okay. And that sticker is going to have a date on it, and it's going to have a start date and an end date on it. And during that period, you have to enter Spain, okay, and get a stamp in. When you're in Spain, you then have 30 days, never letting the visa expire, okay, to register that visa, and you'll be issued with a temporary residency card for a year on a non-lucrative visa. It's very important that you don't now. I'm going to be honest, we have had people who've got entry stamps and expired visas and managed to get the TIE cards because of the availability of the appointments. But our advice is always, when you go to your appointment, don't have an expired visa. It just makes it hard work. So, you need to get in during that period. There's a 90-day visa. Get in, get your entry stamp. Then when you get to Spain, you then register the visa for your temporary residency, which is then renewed accordingly. Obviously, the visa is your permission to get the residency. If you've got an EU passport, you already have permission, so you just need to go and register.
I think the confusion with why people are confused between visas and residency is because it's called renewing your non-lucrative visa, but you're not actually renewing the visa, you're renewing the residency.
You are. So you're given a residency, apart from your NIE number, which would be either issued with your visa. If you already have one, it should be the same one from before. You are given a file number. They call it an expediente number. Now that stays with you forever. So when we're doing the renewals, we go onto the Mercurio platform and we put in the details, and it comes up, oh, this person has a residency already. And say, do you want to continue to? Yes. So that expediente number, which is your residency file, stays with you for your whole life, as long as you're unless you change your situation, i.e., you go from being third country national to EU, then it would change. But during the period of your non-lucrative visa, it'll always be the same expediente file number.
There we go. Oh, we've got 3 good questions come up on the live chat. Let's do these very quickly, because you do have to go after them, take the children to golf. So Jad says, my family are living in the UK. Wife is French EU passport, want to move to Spain and don't have an EU passport. I work as a handyman, and when I move, I want to work. What's the easiest way? Well, it is quite easy.
With your wife. Yeah, your wife can get residency, then you can be an EU family member, and that gives you the right to work and a 5-year residency card.
There we go. That's the simple answer. We have done videos in the past. In fact, only about 2 months ago, we did one which was called How Do I Get Residency If One of Us is an EU citizen and the other one isn't? So, and that covers your situation in there. So have a look at that video. And if you've got any more questions, you can ask underneath the video. And here we go. We're moving through these really quickly. And Rupert, good morning, Rupert. He's retired with an annual pension of 28,200 after tax. I will only be able to rent in Benidorm, only a few thousand I'm in savings. Would this be sufficient to move over?
28,000, did you say, Rupert, there?
Yeah, and that's pounds.
Yeah, with the conversion, that would be, at the moment, that'd be fine. Let's see, keep an eye on EPREM. So it did take a bit of a hike this year, and I expect that maybe if the economy stays the same, it might go up a little bit next year. But then one would expect your pension to go up as well. So yeah, that you should be okay with that.
Yeah, that should be just about enough. I mean, you're renting in Benidorm. It's not particularly cheap, I don't think, or is it? Yeah, there we go then. And next question, Stan. Good morning, Stan. He's a retired US citizen who meets the non-lucrative visa requirements, hoping to relocate to Malaga. Lovely. Best place. What is the total estimated cost and timeline of Upsticks services for a non-lucrative visa? Good question.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it depends. So no, basically, when we're doing non-lucrative visas, it depends on people's situation. Our package costs between either €595, which includes VAT and the registration tax here, up to €795, depending on what we're doing in the package. Because a lot of the times we do the S1 registrations, we are now going to be doing driving licenses. So, you know, there's a lot of things we can add into it. He's got his consulate fee. Being American, the consulate fees are a lot less than the Brits, which is great. And then depending on his healthcare and everything else, without the healthcare, he's probably looking at around, I'd say, $1,000 for the application process. And he's got to stick his healthcare on top of that as well. A lot depends in the States about the translations, because they do require a lot of translations in the States for a lot of the different embassies. And they can get quite expensive as well. So it's a bit of an it depends answer.
I've heard the criminal records checks, like FBI fingerprints and things, they're not coming through within 3 months. So it's been a bit difficult for US citizens recently.
It's been very difficult. Yeah, it's a pain, yeah.
There we go. Well, I think we'll finish the questions there so that you can get off. And so anything else we need to, we can talk about things like funeral plans and wills in the planning one in 2 weeks' time. So if you have any more questions, anyone, put them in the comments below, and we can cover those on either the next show or the one after when Chris is here. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week. So next week, as I said, Chris is doing 3 weeks in a row, and we kind of linked them all together loosely. So we've talked about retiring to Spain. Next week is Easter weekend, so we're going to be talking about fun, food and festivities in Spain and how to enjoy the culture of this amazing country. We won't just cover Easter, we'll just talk about all kinds of festivities and fiestas and the sort of things that you can expect over here, because it's fantastic. I might even take some photographs or videos of what's happening in Semana Santa, which is this week. There's kind of processions almost every day through the towns. So yeah, and what would be really wonderful is if everybody could share your experiences, if you're in Spain already, of fun, food and festivities in Spain for next week's show, and I can maybe get you some of your photographs in there. Try not to have children in the photographs. I know that's difficult when you're taking pictures of celebrations, but that's kind of against YouTube rules. So get in touch either under this video or on the YouTooSpain Facebook group. Do that right now, and we'll say goodbye to everybody on the live chat. A big virtual hug to Chris and a big virtual kiss, and somebody pass around the retirement cookies. And I will see you all. We will see you all next Saturday morning at the regular time of 9 o'clock in the morning. Or if you're in the UK or Ireland, 10 a.m. if you're in Spain or Central Europe, or you can work it out if you're somewhere else. So peace and love. Normally I wave goodbye to Chris before this, but let's go straight on to the lovely dance. You ready to dance, Chris? Here we go. Everybody, let's dance. Goodbye for now.